I poured $45,000 into my daughter's perfect wedding, only to have the photographer call me 5 months later with 47 photos proving the groom brought his mistress and the entire ceremony was a calculated fraud. Now, I had to choose: protect my daughter's heart, or use that horrifying truth to destroy the man who stole our savings and our peace. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. 5 months after the wedding, the sound of my phone ringing at 7:00 p.m. was a physical jolt. It was an unknown number, and my hand trembled over the screen before I answered. "Mrs. Vance?" A man's voice, familiar, too strained, said on the line, "This is Gavin Price. I was your daughter's photographer." My pulse spiked. "Gavin? Is something wrong with the album?" "Not exactly," he rushed, the words scraping the line. "I found something in the raw files. I need you to come to my studio tonight. Please don't tell Chloe yet. You need to see this first." I was Eleanor Vance, 68 years old, a widow who had poured the last of her emotional energy and nearly all of her retirement cushion into one single day. My savings, built up carefully after my husband James died, were down to $68,000, and $45,000 of that had gone to pay for Chloe's perfect wedding. Perfect was the only way I could justify the sacrifice. The deferred home repairs, the generic groceries, the 3 years of aggressively tight budgeting. It had to be perfect. I had concerns about Leo Sterling from the start. He was a salesman, all charming teeth and vague talk about ventures and building my brand. My best friend, Vivian, Pat, had pegged him immediately. Men that smooth are hiding something. But Chloe, my only child, was radiant. She finally laughed again. How could I refuse her this happiness? So I paid for the $12,000 venue, the $9,000 catering, the $3,200 dress, and the $4,500 fee for Gavin, the highly recommended photographer. Now, Gavin's urgency felt like the final shoe dropping on that entire reckless investment. I drove across town, knuckles white on the steering wheel, the evening traffic blurring past the windows. The loft, Gavin's studio, was quiet when I arrived. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, eyes red, movements jumpy. "Mrs. Vance, I have 2 daughters," he started, his voice low and ragged, "and if this was happening to one of them, I would want to know. You paid me to document a wedding. I documented a crime scene." The word crime struck me like a fist. He pulled up his massive monitor. It was a beautiful shot of Chloe during the cocktail hour, laughing with her maid of honor, Kesha. He zoomed, bypassing the beautiful foreground entirely. Hidden behind a wrought iron hedge, slightly soft-focused, were a man and a woman. They were standing so close, their shoulders almost touching. "Recognize them?" Gavin asked. I squinted at the blurred shape of the man, the cut of the tuxedo, the width of the shoulders. My breath stalled. That's Leo." Gavin didn't wait. He pulled up the next frame. Different time, different angle. The man's face was unmistakable now. My handsome, vague son-in-law. His hand was resting low on the woman's back, proprietary, intimate. She was young, dark hair pulled back, wearing a tight cherry red dress. I remembered seeing her near the back, watching. I had dismissed her as a co-worker. I was focused on the main action, Gavin murmured, clicking fast. But I always review the raw photos later for portfolio work. When the algorithm kept flagging this specific woman next to the groom, I started looking for a pattern. He showed me the sequence, photo after photo. During the ceremony, the woman in red sitting alone, Leo glancing back, a quick, charged look. During dinner, the woman seated where she could see the head table. Then, the undeniable proof, a wide shot of Leo at his table, his phone angled slightly. Gavin zoomed in on the screen. A new text notification from Sky Reed. The pit of my stomach went cold. Sky. Then came the final image. Timestamp 8:47 p.m. while the DJ was announcing the bouquet toss inside. They were outside the venue, framed by a stone pillar and a drooping willow branch. They were kissing, unmistakably, passionately kissing, at my daughter's wedding. The wedding I paid $45,000 for. I covered my mouth, the sound a ragged gasp. All the sacrifice, the freezing winters with the thermostat down, the endless generic store brands, all of it had gone to stage this lie. I counted, Gavin whispered, his voice thick with sympathy. She appears in 47 photos across the day. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. A deliberate, cruel choice. I gripped the edge of the desk. The wedding wasn't perfect. It was all a lie. I need a copy of everything, I said, my voice thin but suddenly rock steady. With the timestamps, with the metadata, everything you have. The tears that had been pricking my eyes dried instantly, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I didn't want to break down. I wanted to break him. Gavin handed me a small black USB drive. He didn't charge me a penny. He only said, "I hope this helps your daughter find the truth she deserves." I drove home, the drive hot in my palm. My car felt like a cage, but the rage was building, burning away the grief. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for 10 minutes, the car engine ticking, before I realized I couldn't face this alone. I needed Vivian. I called her. "I need you here now," I ordered. "Drop everything." She arrived in 15 minutes, took one look at my face, and didn't ask a single question. I led her to the kitchen, plugged the USB into my laptop, and hit play. Vivian leaned in, taking in the scene. Her eyes narrowed as she absorbed the 47 photos. The intimate touches, the stolen glances, the kiss. "That sorry, low-down piece of trash," Vivian hissed, her hands balling into fists. "I told you, Eleanor. I told you men like that are hiding something." We moved to the kitchen table, the laptop screen, the only light. The next step was impossible until we knew her name. We had the name Sky Reed from the phone notification, but we needed confirmation. I remembered the seating chart. Sky had been at Kevin Marshall's table. Kevin was Leo's groomsman. "Find Kevin on social media," I instructed. "We're going straight to the source." Vivian tracked him down in minutes and sent a direct message using my phone number. "Regina Matthews, Chloe's mother. I need to ask you about your +1. It's urgent. Please call." We waited, the silence of the kitchen amplifying the sound of our breathing. My retirement, my daughter's heart, my peace, all hinged on a phone call I was dreading. The phone rang at 9:47 p.m. "Mrs. Vance," a nervous male voice said. "It's Kevin. Listen, I'm really sorry. Leo, asked me to bring her. He said it was important. I feel sick about it." "Who is she, Kevin?" I asked, my voice dangerously even. "Her name is Sky Reed. She's his girlfriend. Has been for about 2 years." I ended the call without another word. 2 years. Leo had planned a life with Chloe while living a secret life with Sky. "Sky Reed," Vivian muttered, already typing. She pulled up the profile, stylist, public account, and then the photos began scrolling. Intimate beach trips, cozy restaurant dinners, holiday cards, all marked with dates that overlapped Leo's entire engagement to Chloe. A whole life, documented in public, that none of us had seen. I stood up, pushing the chair back, the sound sharp and jarring. The money was gone. The trust was gone. Now, I had to be the one to rip the bandage off the wound. I had to tell Chloe that the man she chose, the man she loved, was a liar. The shock of the previous night had solidified into a cold, diamond-hard resolve. I spent the morning preparing for the inevitable confrontation, moving with the methodical precision of a retired teacher, planning an impossible lesson. The memory of the 47 photos and the words "has been for about 2 years" felt like a physical weight in my chest. First, I called Miss Chen, my former student, who was now a family law attorney. I laid out the facts, the money spent, $45,000, the deception, the clear photographic evidence of infidelity during the ceremony, and Kevin Marshall's sworn statement. "Eleanor, this is catastrophic, but from a legal standpoint, it's gold," Ms. Chen said. "Fraudulent inducement. We can pursue an annulment immediately. The 5-month window is critical. We need to move fast to legally void the marriage before the 6-month mark gives him more leverage." Void the marriage. Like it never happened. That felt like the only way to claw back any dignity from the ashes of that day. Next, I called Pastor Thompson, who had officiated the ceremony and known Chloe since she was a girl. I told him about the vows, the lie, the woman in the red dress sitting in the pews. He was speechless. The level of sacrilege, Eleanor, to stand at the altar in front of God and community, with that deceit on full display. Chloe needs to know that God's grace is with her. The spiritual contract was broken by him, not her. I was building my army. The lawyer for the legal fight, the pastor for the spiritual healing, Vivian for the sheer, righteous fury I couldn't allow myself to unleash yet. Then came the hardest part. I called Chloe. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was bright, cheerful, utterly normal. It broke my heart all over again. "Baby, I need you to come over. Tonight? Around 6, without Leo. It's important, and it can't wait." Her tone shifted instantly, the sunshine vanishing. "Mom, you're scaring me. Is everything okay?" "I'm fine. Just please come. I need to talk to you about something that happened at the wedding." The vague reference to the wedding was intentional, a small piece of foreshadowing to prepare her for the context, if not the scale, of the blow. She agreed, her voice laced with growing dread. The afternoon was an agony of waiting. I set up the laptop on the kitchen table, the USB drive ready, the chair placement carefully chosen. I didn't want Chloe cornered, but I needed her focused. Vivian arrived at 5. At exactly 6 p.m., Chloe arrived, carrying a white takeout bag. "I brought General Tso's. Figured we'd need comfort food if you're this mysterious." She forced a smile that died the moment she saw my face and Vivian's solemn expression. "Baby, sit down," I instructed, my voice flat. She sat, the takeout bag sliding across the table. "Mom, seriously, what is it? Did Dad's sister call about the trust again?" "No, this is about Leo and the wedding." I didn't lead with the Instagram post or the lawyer's name. I went straight to the evidence. I turned the laptop toward her. The first image on the screen was the high-resolution shot of Leo and Sky in the red dress, intimate, smiling, partially hidden behind the hedge. Chloe squinted. "Who is that? I don't recognize her. Is that a friend of Brandon's?" I zoomed to the crucial part, Leo's hand on Sky's lower back. "This woman was with your husband throughout your entire wedding day." Chloe's confusion hardened into resistance. "Mom, that's crazy. Lots of people were there. Maybe she's a distant cousin." I pulled up the next frame, Leo looking over his shoulder toward the back row during the vows. Then the text message. From Sky Reed. Then the rapid-fire succession of images of their hushed conversations, the shared space, the charged body language. Her breath started coming faster, a thin, sharp sound. That's Dante with some woman," she whispered, her hand starting to shake. I moved to the climax. The photo time-stamped 8:47 p.m., the moment of the kiss. I held the laptop steady so she couldn't miss the clarity of the betrayal. Chloe stared at the screen for a long, silent moment. Her face crumbled, disbelief turning to horror. Then the dam broke. She let out a scream, an animal sound of pure, unadulterated anguish. The takeout food forgotten, she collapsed forward onto the table, sobbing so violently her entire body shook. Vivian and I were instantly at her side, holding her. Why? She gasped between ragged sobs. Why would he do this? How could he do this to me? I couldn't answer. I just held her, stroking her hair, letting the magnitude of the betrayal wash over her. It felt like hours before the sobs subsided into hiccuping breaths. I need to talk to him, she whispered, desperate. I need to hear him explain this. I nodded. I knew that need. She had to hear the lie crumble directly from his mouth. With trembling fingers, Chloe grabbed her phone and put Leo on speaker. He answered, annoyed. Babe, it's late. What's wrong? Chloe's voice was wet, thick with pain, but shockingly steady. Leo, who is Sky Reed? Silence. Thick, heavy, incriminating silence. I could hear the air crackle around the phone. Leo, who is Sky Clark? She repeated louder, forcing the truth into the quiet space. I don't know what you're talking about, Chloe. This is insane. The gaslighting started immediately. Can we talk about this in person? Where are you? No. Answer the question. You brought her to our wedding. I have 47 photos of you with her. His voice went placating, trying to reel her back in. Babe, listen. She's nobody. Just a friend. The photographer obviously misunderstood the context. I wasn't kissing her. A friend you were kissing at my wedding, Leo? I couldn't help myself. I reached for the phone, putting my hand over Chloe's. Leo, this is Eleanor. I'm looking at the photo right now. Time-stamped 8:47 p.m. Your lips on hers. Crystal clear. Stop lying to my daughter. The placating tone vanished, replaced by a cold, hard threat. Mrs. Vance? With all due respect, this is between me and my wife. I don't appreciate you interfering in our marriage. You made it my business, I shot back, my voice cutting him off. When you brought your mistress to a wedding I paid $45,000 for. You brought your lie to my table. He was trapped. He could hear Vivian breathing heavily beside me. He knew we had the evidence. A defeated sigh, then a sudden, desperate yell. Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Sky on and off. It's complicated, but it doesn't mean anything. You're my wife. It's just physical. Chloe made a small, choked sound. The phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the table. That phrase, it doesn't mean anything, was the final hammer blow. He had admitted the entire 2-year lie while minimizing the cost. Vivian snatched the phone. You are a pathetic excuse for a man, Leo. You made vows while your side piece watched. You used this woman's money. You married her daughter. And you are nothing but a disgrace. Leo said something crude and hung up. Chloe was staring at the wall, frozen, the tears slowing. He admitted it. She whispered. Oh my God, Mom. He admitted it. What do I do? You leave him, baby, I said, kneeling beside her. You leave him, and you don't look back. That marriage was broken before it even began. We stayed up until 3 a.m. I heard her crying, softly through the wall. As I finally drifted off, the phone on the bedside table buzzed. I saw a notification from a number I didn't know. I ignored it. But as I closed my eyes, I had a sudden, terrible premonition. A cold dread, replacing the heat of my anger. He was not going to let her go easily. I knew it. Chloe was physically sick the next morning. She stayed in bed, wrapped in a blanket, unable to move past the immediate trauma. Vivian and Kesha, Chloe's best friend, arrived like two sharp arrows, bringing hot tea and fierce loyalty. I knew something was off, Kesha declared, hugging Chloe tight. I saw him at a lunch 3 months ago, being cozy with some woman. I mentioned it, and you said it was a business meeting. I trusted him, Chloe whispered, the shame visible on her swollen face. I believed him. That's on him, not you, I insisted, placing the phone call to Miss Chen. We need to move now. I want the annulment petition filed by the end of the day. The clock is ticking. Ms. Ao. Chen confirmed she was drafting the papers, leveraging the fraud angle, infidelity before, during, and after the vows, evidenced by the 47 photos and Kevin's statement. While Ms. Chen worked, the pressure began from Leo's side. First, the calls from his family. His mother, Loretta, called me directly. I made the mistake of answering, putting the phone on speaker for Vivian to hear. How dare you poison Simone against my son? Loretta screamed into the phone. You showed her those photos. You've always hated him. You're trying to destroy their marriage. I didn't destroy their marriage, Mrs. Sterling, I said, my voice ice. Your son did that when he brought his mistress to the wedding I paid for. That's a lie. Dante doesn't have a mistress. You probably paid that photographer to edit the photos. The sheer, breathtaking audacity made me stand up straight. Why would I pay thousands of dollars to make your son look bad? He managed that all on his own. Because you never liked him. If I'd wanted to break them up, I wouldn't have paid $45,000 for their wedding. I fired the number at her like a weapon. Every penny of it? Your family contributed $1. Don't you dare accuse me of trying to ruin this marriage. I invested everything I had into it. The financial hook found its mark. You paid how much? She stammered. It's your fault for being foolish with money. She quickly rallied. Simone should forgive him. Men make mistakes. That's what wives do. I hung up, shaking with rage, but feeling a grim satisfaction. I had widened the cost. The financial shame was now on the table, and it was tied directly to his family's enabling behavior. Later that afternoon, Leo arrived. I saw his dark sedan pull into my driveway. I was prepared. I immediately locked the doors and called Officer Baker, Washington, who lived 3 houses down. Leo pounded on the front door, his voice loud and frantic. Chloe, open the door. We need to talk. This is a huge misunderstanding. I pressed my face against the peephole. His face was contorted, less charming salesman, more desperate, entitled bully. She doesn't want to see you, I called through the heavy oak door. You can't keep her from me, Regina. This is between a husband and his wife. Get out of my business. This stopped being between you when you brought your mistress to a wedding I paid for, I said, not yelling, just stating fact. She belongs to me, he roared, hitting the door again, the sound echoing in the silent street. She's my wife. She belongs to me. That phrase, she belongs to me, sent a spike of pure protective rage through me. My daughter was not a possession. 2 minutes later, Officer Baker's patrol car pulled up. Leo instantly changed his posture, shifting from raging husband to defensive, misunderstood victim. I watched through the window as the officer approached him, calm and professional. Leo gestured wildly, pointing at my house, at his car, at the world. The officer remained unmoved. After 5 agonizing minutes, Leo backed down, got into his sedan, and drove away, tires squealing in frustration. Officer Baker came to the door. He's gone, Mrs. Vance. I told him if he comes back without her explicit invitation, he will be arrested for harassment and trespassing. I've noted his behavior in my report, especially the use of force and that phrase, she belongs to me. If you need a restraining order, this will help. Thank you, officer. Thank you. Chloe, who had crept down the stairs, had heard everything. Her face, still swollen with tears, hardened with an anger I'd never seen before. He said, "I belong to him," she repeated, her voice low and dangerous. "I don't belong to anyone. I'm a person. I want to file the annulment today. Now." That righteous rage was the first sign of life I'd seen in her eyes since the reveal. Within 3 hours, we were in Miss Chen's office. Chloe signed the petition, citing fraud and attaching the full evidence packet. "This is one of the strongest annulment cases I've ever seen," Ms. Chen assured us. "The evidence is overwhelming. He'd be foolish to contest this." That evening, Leo was served. The next day, his lawyer, a man named Mr. Finch, called Ms. Chen. "My client is furious," Finch stated. "He will fight this. He believes counseling can save the marriage." "Your client brought his mistress to his own wedding, Mr. Finch," Ms. Chen retorted coolly. "There's nothing to save. He can sign the papers willingly, or we will go to court and publicly display the photographic evidence." His choice. The line went quiet. "I'll talk to my client." But the reprieve was short-lived. Later that night, as I was finally able to breathe a little, Ms. Chen called back. "Eleanor, something has shifted. Finch just called me back. Leo isn't surrendering. He is filing a counterclaim for defamation and emotional distress, citing Chloe's social media posts. He's also requesting a temporary financial freeze on her separate assets, arguing the wedding was a joint investment and that he has a right to the remaining marital savings. Your savings, Eleanor. He just escalated this into a full-blown war." Leo's counterclaim felt like a physical attack. He was using the legal system to retaliate, not just against Chloe, but against me, trying to seize the remaining $23,000 of my retirement savings. Miss Chen was clear. "He's bluffing about the money, but he can delay the annulment. He's forcing us into mediation first to waste time and resources." My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with a renewed cold fury. "He doesn't get a penny of that money. It's mine. He will not win." "We need to focus on two things," Ms. Chen advised. "The restraining order, leveraging the police report, and exposing his deception at the mediation. We need to frame this entire marriage as a financial scam, not a relationship gone bad." The pressure was relentless. Over the next week, Leo's sister, Michelle, started a social media campaign, calling Chloe a gold digger and saying I was a bitter, manipulative mother who never approved of her brother. She actually posted, "Men cheat sometimes. It's just what they do. Simone needs to be realistic." The phone was ringing constantly. I ignored Loretta's tearful attacks and Michelle's ugly tirades. The community gossip was beginning, spreading like wildfire. This was the social rung of the escalation ladder. The mandatory mediation was scheduled for the following Monday. Chloe was a wreck, terrified of facing him again. "I can't look at him, Mom. I can't listen to his lies." "You don't have to look at him," I told her, helping her dress in a crisp, dark suit. "You look at the mediator. You look at Ms. Chen. You look at the evidence. You are correcting a legal mistake. He is the defendant in a fraud case. That's all he is." Just before we left, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Gavin Price, Marcus Webb, the photographer. He was making good on his promise. He was refunding the entire photography fee, $4,500. "Use this toward your healing," the note read. "That wedding was a crime scene. I can't in good conscience keep the money." It was a small, crucial victory, a moment of true decency in a landscape of betrayal. "We're taking that $4,500 check straight to the mediation," I declared. "It proves how completely fraudulent the entire affair was." We arrived at the mediation office. Leo was already there, looking handsome and contrite in a tailor-made suit, the charming salesman persona back in full force. Sky Reed, Jasmine Clark, The mistress was inexplicably sitting in the waiting area, looking anxious. "He brought her," Chloe whispered, her face draining of color. "He brought her to the mediation." "He brought her to the wedding, Chloe," I reminded her, grabbing her arm. "This is the same man playing the same games. She is his accomplice. Ignore her. She has no place here." The mediator, an older woman with a tired expression, led us into the room. Leo's lawyer, Mr. Finch, started immediately, leveraging his counterclaim. "My client is devastated," Finch droned. "He believes the marriage can be saved. But if Ms. Matthews is intent on annulment, my client needs to be compensated for the emotional trauma of the split, as well as his lost time and joint investment in the wedding. We are prepared to withdraw the defamation suit if Ms. Matthews agrees to pay my client $20,000. Leo nodded sadly, looking straight at Chloe with fake vulnerability. "Chloe, I just want what's fair. I lost time too. I gave this my best shot. $20,000. He was trying to profit off my sacrifice. The sheer gall of trying to recoup half the wedding cost when his family paid nothing, while he cheated on the day itself, made my blood boil." Ms. Chen leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Mr. Finch, your client is requesting compensation for a marriage legally voidable on the grounds of fraud. The evidence shows he concealed an ongoing 2-year affair and brought his mistress, Miss Reed, to the ceremony itself. We are not paying your client. We are demanding the annulment, the court-ordered reimbursement for joint expenses incurred during the sham marriage, and an immediate, permanent restraining order." Leo cut in, his charm cracking. "Chloe, you know that's not fair. I love you." Chloe finally spoke. Her voice was weak, but the words were solid granite. "You don't love me, Leo. You love control. I saw the photos. I heard you tell my mother I belong to you. You can't bill me for the cost of bringing your mistress to the wedding. We're done." She stood up, reaching for her purse. "There is nothing to mediate. We'll see you in court." We walked out, leaving Leo sputtering, his careful composure shattered. Sky Reed immediately darted into the mediation room as the door clicked shut behind us. The court hearing was moved to the end of the week. This was it. The legal blade was finally descending. We had the fraud petition, the 47 photos, Kevin's statement, the police report, and now the check from the photographer. We had built a fortress of truth. The morning of the hearing, Chloe was calm, almost serene. She was no longer crying. She was simply resolved. We walked into the courthouse, 2 women ready for war. The courtroom was small, sterile, and unforgiving. Judge Anderson, a black woman in her 50s, sat on the bench, her expression kind but unreadable. Ms. Chen presented our case in a swift, devastating 15 minutes. She didn't just present the evidence. She painted a picture of calculated financial exploitation. "Your Honor, the petitioner, Chloe Matthews, paid $45,000 for a wedding ceremony that was fundamentally compromised by the respondent's intentional fraud. We are not arguing a simple matter of postmarital infidelity. We are arguing that the marriage contract itself was void from the start, as evidenced by the 47 photographs showing the groom and his paramour, Sky Reed, engaging in intimate behavior throughout the ceremony and reception, culminating in a kiss at 8:47 p.m., while the bride was cutting the cake." She held up the USB drive like a smoking gun. She also introduced the police report detailing Leo's aggressive attempt to force entry, including his use of the phrase, "She belongs to me." Mr. Finch, Leo's lawyer, tried to argue the counterclaim. He tried to discredit Gavin Price, claiming the photos were staged or taken out of context. He even tried to argue that the $45,000 expenditure was an investment, not a gift, which gave Leo a financial stake. Judge Anderson leaned forward, her voice cutting through the lawyer's bluster. Counselor, are you seriously arguing that a man who has been carrying on a 2-year extramarital affair, who brought his mistress to the wedding ceremony, has a legal right to compensation for a lost investment? Your Honor, my client loves his wife. He made an error in judgment that can be rectified through counseling. Counselor, that is not an error in judgment. That is calculated deception and cruelty, the judge stated, her voice hardening. She turned to Leo. Mr. Sterling, did you or did you not have an ongoing sexual relationship with Ms. Reed before and during this marriage? Leo shifted, swallowing hard. Your Honor, I can explain. Yes or no, Mr. Sterling? The truth is easier. Yes, he mumbled. And did you bring this other woman to your wedding as someone's guest? He looked at his lawyer, who gave a slight, resigned nod. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Anderson turned her full attention to Chloe. Ms. Matthews, based on the substantial and frankly appalling evidence presented, I am granting your request. This marriage is hereby annulled and dissolved. It will be as if it never legally existed. Chloe let out a sob, but this time it was a sound of immense relief. The judge continued, addressing Leo with unconcealed disgust. Mr. Sterling, you are ordered to reimburse Ms. Matthews for any joint expenses incurred during this sham of a marriage. Furthermore, you should be deeply ashamed of yourself. You defrauded this young woman. You made vows with no intention of keeping them. You used her kindness, her mother's sacrifice, and her father's memory for your own convenience. That level of deception is beyond my comprehension. She dismissed the counterclaim, refusing to even entertain his lawyer's protest. Annulment granted. Case closed. Get out of my courtroom. We stood up, Chloe trembling, smiling through her tears. We moved swiftly toward the exit, past Leo, who stood frozen, his face a sickening mix of shock, denial, and pure, concentrated rage. In the hallway, Chloe clung to me. It's over, Mom. It's really over. As we waited for the elevator, Leo caught up, his voice low and vicious. Chloe, please, I'll change. I'll make it right. Chloe turned to him, her eyes cold and empty. Don't ever contact me again, Leo. Don't call. Don't text. If I see you anywhere near me, I'll get a permanent restraining order. We're done. Forever. We stepped into the elevator, and just as the doors began to slide shut, Leo lunged forward, his face inches from the gap. He didn't plead with Chloe. He looked straight at me, his eyes burning with toxic entitlement. You think this is over, Eleanor? He snarled, the voice barely a whisper, but potent with threat. You think you won by showing your photos? You think you still have that $68,000 safe in the bank? You have no idea what I was doing while you were planning that party. The door sealed shut on his stunned, furious face, leaving us trapped with his final chilling threat. Leo's whispered threat. You think you still have that $68,000 safe in the bank? You have no idea what I was doing while you were planning that party. Landed like a punch to my solar plexus. We were free of the legal marriage, but a cold fear immediately replaced the righteous anger. I had dismissed Leo as a shallow liar, but that final snarl suggested a deeper financial predation. What did he mean, Mom? Chloe asked in the elevator, her relief fading. What was he doing with your savings? He was bluffing, baby, I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. He was angry. He was defeated. He just wants to scare us. But the knot in my stomach told a different story. Leo had seen the bank statements during the wedding planning. He knew the $68,000 figure. His entire behavior screamed entitlement and greed. We drove straight to my bank. I walked into the branch, demanding to speak to the manager. I presented my ID and requested a full printed statement of my savings and checking accounts from the last 2 years. The clerk, a young woman who recognized me from church, looked concerned. I told her the basics, a legal dispute, a need to verify all transactions. I sat in the quiet consultation room, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, pulling out my reading glasses. The printed statements arrived, a stack of paper thicker than a textbook. I flipped straight to the period leading up to the annulment filing. Most transactions were normal, but then I hit a block of activity starting 6 months before the wedding. July 20th, $500 outward transfer. Description: Aries Consulting. August 5th, $800 outward transfer. Description: Aries Consulting. September 12th, item yard 100 zal outward transfer. Description: Aries Consulting. Aries Consulting. Leo had often mentioned consulting and building my brand. The transfers were small, always underwater by $500, but they were regular, almost monthly, and they had accelerated right after James's life insurance payout was settled 5 years ago. The amounts totaled nearly $15,000 over 3 years. I felt a dizzying wave of realization. He wasn't just cheating. He was bleeding my account dry. I had been frugal, living on my teacher's pension, cutting coupons, delaying home repairs, while these quiet, regular deductions siphoned off my cushion. My savings should have been closer to $83,000 before the wedding expenses. He didn't just lie about the woman, I whispered, gripping the paper so hard my knuckles were white. He lied about the money, too. I immediately called Miss Chen. He didn't just cheat on her, Miss Chen. He stole from me. He's been draining my savings through fraudulent transfers for years. I rattled off the details and the name, Aries Consulting. Miss Chen's tone shifted from sympathetic to clinically fierce. Eleanor, that changes the entire legal picture. This moves beyond fraud and inducement to financial exploitation. If we can prove he gained access to your accounts or forged documents, he has committed theft. Cut to verb. We needed proof of his ownership of Aries Consulting. Ms. Chen had her team initiate a deep search, leveraging the alias Leo Sterling, Dante Harrison. We discovered Aries Consulting was a legitimate, if thinly capitalized, LLC. The listed owner, Sky Reed. Sky is the face, but Leo is the signature, Ms. Chen stated. Sky is the enabler, not the mastermind. The money flows to her account, then likely to him. We need proof of his signature authority. We needed a witness, someone who worked with Leo closely. Sky wasn't talking. She was the secondary antagonist, protecting her interests. I had a flash of inspiration. Brandon, Leo's best man. The source story had mentioned Brandon gave a funny toast. He was a longtime friend who was settling down. He had been close enough to Leo to give a personal toast. Cut to verb. I drove to the suburb where Brandon was listed as living. I found his house and rang the doorbell. It was a risk, a vulnerability ping, but I needed leverage now. Brandon answered the door, looking surprised but slightly nervous when he saw me. He recognized me instantly. Mrs. Vance, I heard about the annulment. I'm really sorry. I'm not here about the annulment, Brandon, I said, keeping my voice low and direct. I'm here about Aries Consulting and the $15,000 Leo stole from my retirement accounts. His face went pale, his jaw locked. The denial died in his throat. I know Aries Consulting is registered to Sky Reed. I know money went there. But I need to know who signed the checks. Was it Leo? Did you ever see him signing documents related to Aries? Brandon wrung his hands. Mrs. Vance, I can't get involved. Leo and I go way back. But I heard things. He was using that company to launder side money. He was skimming. I stepped closer, lowering my voice further. He told me he'd pay back the $45,000 wedding cost once his next venture takes off. He never intended to pay. He intended to finish draining the $68,000 I had left. He brought his mistress to my daughter's wedding and then tried to steal the last of my money. Do you want to be a part of that lie, Brandon? He looked at the ground, then back up at me. His shoulders fell slightly. The bank documents, the opening paperwork for the account. I saw him sign it. He was worried about taxes. He used his middle name, which isn't on his public LLC records. He signs Leo James Sterling on the consulting documents. It was the proof we needed. His middle name was the key to unlocking the true signature. Thank you, Brandon, I said. You did the right thing. The truth is always better than living a lie. Cut to verb. I drove straight back to Miss Chen's office. We have the middle name, I announced. Leo James Sterling. He signed the bank documents for Aries Consulting. That is the leverage. We can prove financial exploitation now. Ms. Chen started drafting a motion to amend the annulment case into a civil suit for theft and fraud, requesting the return of the full $15,000 plus punitive damages. The stakes were no longer just about reputation or the legal status of the marriage. This was about criminal-level financial fraud. That night, for the first time in days, I felt hope. I had the legal machinery on my side, and I had the proof. But as I settled into bed, the phone rang. It was Leo. I ignored it. He called again and again. I eventually picked up, my guard high. You're going to regret this, Eleanor, he hissed, his voice tight with pure venom. You should have stayed out of it. You want to see how far I can push? I know the address of your daughter's therapist. I know where you tutor. You can't stop me. He hung up, the line snapping silent. The hope threat swing was instantaneous. He had just escalated the situation from financial, legal, to safety. My immediate goal? File the motion for theft and secure protection for Chloe and myself. The next stage of confrontation was about to begin. Leo's call, leveraging my tutoring location and Chloe's therapist, felt like a deliberate move into the public domain. The threat wasn't just to money anymore. It was to our safety and reputation. I woke up the next morning feeling the adrenaline surge. No reflection, just action. I drove Chloe straight to the courthouse and filed for a permanent restraining order. We leveraged Officer Baker's report from the trespassing incident and the audio recording of Leo's threat from the night before, which I had secretly recorded, a simple, decisive action. The judge granted an immediate temporary restraining order against Leo Sterling, mandating a 500-yard distance from both Chloe and me. A visible change. Our access to safety was restored. Cut to verb. Ms. Chen filed the amended civil suit, leveraging Brandon's information about the signature authority for Aries Consulting. We demanded the return of the $15,000 in stolen funds, plus punitive damages for financial exploitation of an elderly person. The legal microcapsule was clear. Theft motion filed. His bank access is now subject to judicial review. The response from Leo and Mr. Finch was swift and messy. They couldn't deny the bank records, but they tried to reframe the payments. They claimed the $15,000 was not stolen, but rather repayment for business loans Leo had made to my husband, James, years ago. It's a lie, Mom. Dad would never take a loan from Leo, especially before they even met, Chloe cried, holding the legal document. It doesn't matter if it's true, baby. It only matters if we can prove it's false, I said, watching her face. The pain I saw in her eyes triggered my next move. This was the final piece of leverage, James's memory. The only artifact that could prove Leo's claim was a lie was James's financial paperwork. Cut to verb. I spent the next 2 days in the dusty, quiet storage unit where I kept all of James's records. Files, receipts, ledgers, the meticulous work of a man who ran his business and his family life cleanly. I was looking for a ghost, any record of a loan agreement with Leo Sterling. I slid a box of old tax returns out, the cardboard scraping on the floor. I needed a sharp sensory jolt, a physical artifact to compel a choice. And then I found it, James's final, locked steel box. Inside, neatly organized, were the closing documents for James's construction business, his will, and a single heavy stock paper labeled Debt Resolution and Final Assets. It was a full accounting, dated 6 years prior, just before his death. It listed every single asset and liability. I scanned the list, my heart pounding. No loans, no debts, no mention of Leo Sterling or Ares Consulting. The section on personal debts was marked with a simple line through it, and the word none. More importantly, tucked into a sleeve was a $10,000 repayment receipt from a distant relative dated 5 years ago. I realized then that my savings were supposed to be $93,000 at the time of James's death, not $68,000. The theft was worse than I thought. The initial $15,000 was only the documented part. I took the debt resolution document, the paper crisp and final, and photocopied it immediately. I didn't just have proof Leo was lying about the $15,000. I had proof Leo had been targeting me even before Chloe was engaged. His knowledge of the money was deeper than I knew. Cut to verb. Ms. Chen moved to the attack. She filed James's debt resolution document with the court, effectively neutralizing Leo's entire counterclaim. The legal fact was simple. Final estate ledger filed. Leo's loan claim is null and void. Leo's leverage, the false financial claim, collapsed instantly. Then came the final brutal confrontation. The court ordered Leo to pay Ms. Chen's fees and set a final date for the financial settlement hearing regarding the repayment of the $15,000. The battle was won, but the war for peace was still ongoing. I received a call from a strange number the next day. It was Sky Reed. "You won, Eleanor," Sky spat, her voice tight with desperation. "The restraining order, the annulment, the money. You took everything. But you don't understand. Leo is ruined. He's already facing charges for another scam. He's desperate." This was the inversion of the evidence. The theft wasn't just about me. It was about protecting Leo from a larger crime. Sky was using me as leverage against Leo. "He told me to call you. He said if you don't drop the $15,000 lawsuit, he will find a way to make sure the annulment is meaningless. He said he has one more piece of evidence that will embarrass Chloe publicly, something from the honeymoon, something about the resort charges." I leaned against the counter. A new threat, vague and social, but powerful because it targeted Chloe's reputation. "You tell Leo to take his threats and shove them," I said, keeping my voice level. "He has lost. The only choice he has now is whether he loses $15,000 to me or everything to the police. I will not be blackmailed, and my daughter is off limits." I hung up, heart pounding. I immediately called Miss Chen. "We have an explicit blackmail threat, Miss Chen. And a new angle. Leo is facing other charges. We need to leverage that information right now." The hope threat swing had stabilized. I was operating purely on threat now, but with legal action as my shield. I had paid the emotional price, and now it was time for Leo to pay the financial and legal price. I knew Leo's next move would be public and desperate. I had to preempt it. Leo's escalation hit the final rung, public. Ruined by the annulment and facing an amended civil suit for $15,000 in theft, he decided to strike back where he thought he had the most power. Social media. One morning, Kesha called Chloe, frantic. "Chloe, Leo just posted something on Facebook. It's insane. He's calling your mom a predator and claiming the annulment was a setup." I rushed to the computer. Leo had posted a long, rambling, semi-coherent diatribe. He attacked me viciously. Eleanor Vance, the bitter old woman who hates her life, manipulated her daughter into a fraudulent annulment. She only wanted the $45,000 wedding to make a show, then fabricated photos and paid the photographer to frame me. She is trying to steal money from me for a loan my family gave her deceased husband. He even tagged Chloe's therapist, suggesting she was mentally unstable. The comments were a firestorm, a mix of furious friends defending Chloe and strangers calling me a monster. This was the public humiliation he sought to inflict. Cut to verb, we moved fast. Ms. Chen immediately filed for an emergency hearing to solidify the permanent restraining order and force Leo to take down the post, citing defamation and violation of the temporary order. She also contacted the prosecutor's office, informing them of Leo's financial fraud and the explicit threat to expose private information. The court date was set for the next day. This was the final showdown. That afternoon, I decided to play my final card. I wrote a single, concise letter and sent it via certified mail to Loretta Sterling, Leo's enabling mother, and Michelle, his aggressive sister. The letter was short, factual, and brutal. It contained only 3 documents: a copy of the permanent restraining order, James's debt resolution document, proving the $15,000 loan was a lie, a copy of the court summons for the $15,000 theft charge. I added one single, rhetorical line. You chose to fight for your son's lie. Now you can pay the cost of his crime. It was a checkmate move. I had leveraged the public shame and backed it up with undeniable financial and legal consequences. The final court hearing was a formality. Leo showed up, looking thin and panicked, without Mr. Finch, who had clearly abandoned ship. Judge Anderson was swift and merciless. She ordered Leo to immediately take down the defamatory post. She made the temporary restraining order permanent. And she issued the final verdict on the financial dispute. Mr. Sterling, the evidence is clear. The $15,000 you extracted from Miss Vance's accounts was not a loan repayment. It was theft. You are hereby ordered to immediately pay Ms. Eleanor Vance the full sum of $15,000, plus interest, within 30 days. He was financially ruined and legally shackled. The humiliation was complete. We walked out of the courthouse in silence. The emotional toll was immense, but the victory was complete. He signed the paper. I exhaled like surf. Victory. Hard-earned. Chloe moved back into her own apartment, changed the locks, and started therapy, focusing on healing and the future. About 2 weeks later, I received an envelope. It was a check from Loretta Sterling, Leo's mother, for the full $15,000, along with a curt, unsigned note. Leave us alone. I had succeeded in putting the consequence not just on the antagonist, but on the entire enabling family system. The $15,000 went straight back into my savings. Combined with Gavin's $4,500 refund, my retirement fund was almost back to where it should have been before the wedding cost, $42,500. The truth, however painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. I repeated the leitmotif line. It had shifted from a statement of agony to a declaration of survival. 2 years after the annulment, the world was quiet. Chloe was thriving. The anger had softened into acceptance, and the shame had transformed into wisdom. She was dating again, slowly, carefully. She met William, a man who was everything Leo wasn't: transparent, genuine, kind. I watched William closely, looking for the tiny red flags I had missed before. There were none. He answered every question, respected every boundary, and, most importantly, treated Chloe with deep, earned respect. When William asked my permission to marry Chloe, I looked him in the eye and issued a final hard promise. If you ever hurt her the way Leo did, You'll answer to me. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, he said, not flinching. I promise you, I would never. Chloe is the best thing that's ever happened to me. They planned a small, intimate wedding. The venue was a local garden. The food was catered BBQ. The entire cost was $8,000. Simple, authentic, and real. Gavin Price, the photographer who had brought me the terrible truth, photographed it for free. I want to document a real marriage this time, he said. There were no hidden figures in the background, no frantic texting, just two people starting a life built on honesty and trust. At the reception, held in Vivian's backyard, Chloe stood up to give a toast. She was radiant, stronger than I had ever seen her. 5 years ago, I got married for the first time, she began, her voice steady. It was a big, expensive, beautiful wedding. My mother paid $45,000 for it, her entire retirement savings, and it was all a lie. She told the story, not with bitterness, but with a detached wisdom. The annulment, the 47 photos, the financial fraud. The guests gasped, riveted. The truth is, Leo's betrayal doesn't erase my joy that day. My mother taught me that, Chloe said, looking at me, her eyes wet with love. His deceit gave me the evidence I needed to get out. It taught me the true cost of a beautiful lie. The photos, the annulment, the fight. It cost my mother her peace and her savings for a while. But that $45,000, it wasn't wasted. She raised her glass. It bought me a hard lesson. It showed me what fake looks like, so I could recognize real when it finally came along. Mom, I love you. Everything I am, everything I survived, is because you were brave enough to show me those photos. She looked at William. And to my husband, who proved that real love exists and that honesty is the only foundation worth building on. The crowd cheered. I was crying, overwhelmed with vindication and love. Later that night, as I hugged Chloe goodbye, she held me tight. I'm so proud of you, baby. The loss of the money bought me something priceless. Chloe whispered into my shoulder. It bought me my strength. And that's worth more than money. I knew she was right. I had spent $45,000 on a wedding that ended in annulment. But I gained a daughter who knows her worth, who trusts her instincts, and who survived betrayal to choose genuine love. That wasn't a loss. That was an investment that paid off in ways money never could. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.